I truly believe that. You look at the election of Jeremy Corbyn in the UK to head the Labour Party. You look at Alexis Tsipras getting reelected, heading Syriza in Greece. You look at the rise of Podemos in Spain. You look at, I mean, all around the world, actually, and across South America in particular, we are seeing the rise of progressive governments, of so-called left-wing governments. And I think this is an inflection point. I think we're at one of those moments where people are saying, you know, 35 years ago, more or less, right around 1980, actually it was in the kind of mid-70s, the idea that was promoted in 1971 or 72 by Lewis Powell in the Powell Memo, and that then kind of inspired and became this whole thing about, you know, if you trickle-down economics, basically, Reaganomics, supply-side economics. This went international. You know, Milton Friedman went down to Argentina and, you know, helped, or Chile rather, and helped General, what's his name, you know, set up the mechanism for murdering over 3,000 Chileans while privatizing Social Security in Chile. Milton Friedman's Chicago boys went over to Russia after the USSR fell apart and said, oh, here's how you do it. And, you know, the result was you've got a whole bunch of billionaires, oligarchs in Russia. I mean, it's same here in the United States, where we have all around the world, we have been dabbling with an economic ideology that does not serve people in general. It serves the very wealthy, and over time hurts the middle class and the poor, and produces homelessness. And I think that people are starting to wake up to the fact that it's a broken ideology. It's not. It doesn't even really qualify as an ideology. It's more of a theology. It's more of a religion, because there is no evidence that it works. There has never been any evidence that it works at all. At least if by it works, what you mean is that it produces a strong middle class. Now, what honest conservatives will tell you, what people who, you know, who have read Russell Kirk, who you know, who understand, you know, and I mean, going all the way back to the 1890s, you know, or the 1790s, excuse me, with you know, what's his name, the guy that Thomas Paine visited on his way to France, and anyhow, who said, you know, it does me no harm if a man is so allowed to engage in a profession as servile as that of tallow maker, of candle maker, or hairdresser, but it does society considerable violence if such a man is allowed to vote. And you know, this has been a long time, right? It's that this has been going on. This idea that really there shouldn't be a middle class. This is the real conservative/Republican posture, economic posture. You go back and you look at the actual writing of the actual people who are actually promoting these situations. Ronald Reagan, for example, when he ended free college in California, he was asked why, and he said, "Why should I be paying for young brats who disagree with my policies to go to school and then go out and protest against me?" I'm paraphrasing, but you can find the quotes. You know, why should we, and this is part of this larger thing of what Russell Kirk predicted in 1951 in his book, The Conservative Mind, that if you allow a middle class to emerge, that middle class will lead to social instability, because they will demand things. They will demand rights. They're going to demand things, the middle class. And so it's not a good idea to have a large middle class. You can have a small middle class. See, you know, Reaganomics is basically how England was run 200 years ago. You had a very small class of what today we would call the billionaire class. They were basically people associated with royalty, the landed gentry, the very wealthy, very, less than 1% of the population. You had a very small middle class in the book A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, who knew this well, by the way. Dickens' father went to prison, into debtor's prison, for not being able to pay his debts. So when Dickens wrote about, the Pickwick Papers or any of these, little what's his name, he knew these stories. So in A Christmas Carol, the truly rich of the day don't even appear in the story. I mean, many retellings of the Christmas Carol make it seem that Ebenezer Scrooge, was a rich guy. He wasn't. He was a mercantilist. He was a shop owner. We never did learn exactly what he did, but whatever he did, it was a small enough business that he had one employee. He was a small businessman, which allowed him to be in the middle class. So you had this very small middle class at that time in the UK and a very large class of the working poor. And to some extent, Scrooge was restrained in how he could help Bob Cratchit because there were maximum wage laws in England 250 years ago. I mean, literally maximum wage laws. You could not pay the working poor more than a certain amount because they might end up in the middle class. And if they do, they're empowered. This is what Russell Kirk was predicting in 1951 about the United States. He said, if Dwight Eisenhower becomes president, if this stuff unionization continues, and more people join unions and get wealthier and wealthier, what are you going to see? You're going to see women start demanding equal rights, including in the workplace. You're going to see African Americans and other people of color demanding equal rights and in the workplace and education. You're going to see young people rebelling against their parents. You're going to see otherwise invisible minorities like gay people who are going to start coming out and demanding that they have rights. And all of this is socially disruptive. And from a conservative point of view, social disruption is a bad thing. From a conservative point of view, change, this is really the old-fashioned Barry Goldwater conservatives. Their idea was, it's okay if society changes over time, as long as those changes are small, incremental, and slow. Rapid change is considered radical. Rapid change is a bad thing. Thomas Jefferson and other liberals, on the other hand, going back to Jefferson, have always called for rapid change. And rapid change is a good thing. It's something we need. Jefferson called for a revolution every 19 years in the United States. Even a rewriting of the Constitution if necessary. He said you wouldn't expect an old man to wear the clothes he wore as a young man every 19 years. So what we're seeing here, the Pope coming out and speaking on behalf essentially of working people in the middle class, the working class, and the Republicans saying, no, we can't, working people, middle class, to hell with that. Send the jobs to China. And by the way, don't let the poor have enough money that they can become politically active. Don't give them enough time that they can show up at a protest demonstration. We take these jobs, these good middle-class jobs, we send them out of the country. People who are making $50,000, $60,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year back in the day, they're now making $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 a year, $20,000 a year at the top end, and they're politically emasculated, essentially. This is the goal of Republican economics.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And it's working just fine, and a lot of people are pushing back, and a lot of people are waking up and looking around and going, who's saying that this stuff is crazy? Oh, Bernie Sanders is saying that. Maybe we should listen to him.